Now, the 15th movie that is considered bad according to the internet, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, year 2023, directed by Kirk D'Amico. And so the story of this movie is about a teenage girl named Ruby Gillman who goes to school as a blue human-sized Kraken. But for some reason, somehow, the other humans are used to her like this, which was kind of strange and confusing, but Ruby wants to fit in at school and hopefully go to prom. But her mother, Agatha, forbids her to go to near any ocean. Even just a small amount of water can trigger this response, which is going to be a problem for Ruby because the prom is going to be near the ocean on a boat. Because also when Ruby goes into the ocean, Ruby transforms into a giant Kraken. And this happened when there was a scene of Ruby's crush Connor who fell off into the waters and Ruby tries to save him, which she did. But now this, however, revealed Ruby's heritage, and now Ruby discovers that her family are actually part of a legendary line of warriors, Kraken warriors that are meant to protect the oceans from dangerous mermaids. This part of the movie where Ruby finds out she's royalty from her grandmother is kind of like the movie Princess Diary. Maybe a little bit, but Ruby really wanted to know who she is and discover her true identity. And she got some help with that with Uncle Brill. And now her grandma tells her that she is now destined to inherit the Kraken throne. And now Ruby is upset that her mother hid this from her, kept it a secret, and now later on we can see that Ruby now rebels a lot with her mother. Fast forwarding later on, we now meet Chelsea, who befriends Ruby for a bit, but then later on we find out, turns out she is Nerissa, the vengeful mermaid queen. She tricked Ruby into getting her the trident that can destroy Krakens and wage war on them. And in the end of the climax, Ruby, Agatha, and Grandma combined their powers and made a giant laser beam to destroy the trident and defeat Nerissa. The story ends with the world accepting the Krakens as heroes. Ruby goes to prom with Connor, which I will say Ruby's dress looked good, and they all lived happily ever after. Now with all that being said, now let's take a look at the 3 main reasons why this movie is bad according to the internet.
According to the internet, the movie Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken has 3 main weaknesses. Number 1, a predictable teen story. Number 2, spoilers in marketing. And number 3, simple character archetypes. Now back to you.
So the first one is predictable teen story. Now this does feel predictable and not surprising. There are many example movies out there with the same or similar plot, but I guess the Kraken part does make it unique and different, but I think it kind of worked. The prom thing wasn't that interesting. It wasn't even the main focus. I think the main focus was the family dynamic and how each individual come together and be able to work together aside the differences. We don't see too much of Ruby's and Connor's interactions that much, and Ruby's crush on Connor wasn't even the highlight. I think they didn't delve into more the romance type of thing. It was more of a generational family discussion. The prom scenario is a typical scenario, but I don't think it brought too much enough value to the main story. It even made Ruby's feelings too easy to guess, and it was a very short part of the entire movie. I think the prom thing was just a side quest, and I think they used the prom scenario just to introduce new characters, and because Ruby is a teenager, sort of setting that tone. But I do think it was somewhat necessary to have this incorporated in the movie. It's actually a nice part and system for the main character. So for the first one, I would have to disagree. The second one is spoiler in marketing. If you watched the trailer, you were definitely watching a big spoiler, including major plot twists. This unfortunately reduces the element of surprise, which doesn't give you that gradual discovery. This makes it less suspenseful and disappointing, showcasing Chelsea as the main villain right off the bat, while in the beginning of the movie, introducing her as not that, trying to show the audience that eventually she will become that, but having the audience already in their mind knowing that, it just feels like it's a waste of opportunity. I feel like they could have handled that a little bit better to make it look less obvious, but what's done is done, so I would have to agree on this one 100%. The third and last one is simple character archetype. I just have to agree, in this movie, it shows that Ruby is somewhat gullible, but then again, she doesn't really stand out that much. I think she does have some character development. There are indeed moments where she does struggle about herself, but if we could have inputted the Kraken side of things, of how she is perceived different from the others, the impact of the movie could have been a lot stronger. Ruby reacts to things instead of driving them more proactively, and emotional stakes could have been more stronger. Ruby's friends, I think, didn't put too much change to the story, impact on Ruby, or the entire movie. Chelsea was predictable because of the earlier reveal, which doesn't make it surprising. I do wish they could have introduced more on the backstory of mermaids, or the mermaids versus Kraken Kraken story, the history of what goes on in the past, the development, the origin. I do also wish that maybe Chelsea and Ruby were good friends before from the beginning. That could add substance instead of it randomly appearing. It's just too rushed with the writing, and nothing feels like a special occasion except Ruby's prom dress and the mother and daughter heart-to-heart discussion. Unfortunately, the build-up of the movie is lacking. The plot events was too simple. Chelsea did look like too much like the Little Mermaid.
What?
But a nice scene that I liked, that it was done pretty good, was when Ruby and her mom had a moment where her mom confronts her when she felt scared of losing her and the responsibility that comes with it. That was genuinely a nice moment. But overall, I will have to say I agree. I do like the animation. The colors were bright in some cases, but a little bit too dark in other places. I did find it a little bit interesting of usually Krakens aren't perceived as heroes typically, more like the ones that destroy ships or kind of look like these. But if they could have showed a history of that happening, that would have helped change the perspective of the Krakens in this movie. It could have been nice to help explore for the audience. But overall, it was not as what I would have liked. There is definitely more need of improvement, but I can see the potential. The designs of the characters were quite unique and nice, and definitely imagination and creativity was there.
Release the Kraken!